We will open up the minutes for the Town of Barre Finance Committee.
And previous to that, may the select board call itself to order.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we're here and we're legal.
Excellent. And just so everyone knows, this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live on BCTV. Is there anyone else in the room recording here tonight? Excellent. Thank you. Let's get right into it. So Zach was absent last week, and I think Lee has our minutes. So we're going to skip over the approval of minutes because we don't have minutes, and we're going to jump right into our new business and our final review of the FY26 budget ahead of the public hearing next week on Tuesday the 17th and ahead of the annual town meeting on Tuesday the 24th. And Mr. Alphonse, would you like to kind of walk us through where we ended up here?
Sure. So I added a column saying FY26 balanced. So those, the total on that for municipal departments is 14 million, municipal departments and schools, excuse me, 14,924,144. And that's my recommendation for the balanced budget. It is predicated on a transfer from the stabilization fund. So cuts were made, totaling $464,610. And then there was an additional amount that was put in for override. So if you look at the right-hand column, you can see where those are. Most of them are the items that were cut. However, there are a few things that were put in there that were new. I think we might have had a brief conversation about them at the last meeting, but they are specifically on repairs to town buildings. There was zero money budgeted for repairs to the buildings. $50,000 was put in for that. Highway road projects, there was an account for highway department, but not necessarily project related. So $50,000 has been put in that. And then the last amount that is substantial is under health insurance. I put in an amount for $50,000 into the OPEB trust. So that this is a nice way to be able to fund our OPEB obligations, which I don't have any recollection of, but we have about $120,000 in that account. And it's recommended that we do that. And then the other ones, as I said, are kind of parallel the cuts that were made in all of the instances. If you turn to the last page, I'd like to sum it up. So the total budget reductions were $464,610. The suggested override for you and the selectmen to consider is $553,623. So I just kind of put down some of the math here so everyone understands the balanced budget total, less our exempt debt, less enterprise fund debt, less state aid, less local receipts, less additional funds, which include indirects from the enterprise and money from the ambulance revenue, brings us to a total amount of raise and appropriate of $10,550,578. I put in the assessors article because it sits outside the budget, but it is something that we kind of have to keep an eye open for. So that gives us total appropriation against the tax levy of $10,578,778. Match that up against the maximum amount that we can raise, and I've done the math in the box, which is $10,404,981 and a couple of cents and change. So that would necessitate, with the balanced budget, a transfer from the stabilization fund. That number needs to be updated based upon a recent contract settlement that we got from the fire department on the union negotiations. So I think it's about about $22,000 or in that area. 22,011. So that's kind of the summation on the budget. We have, in terms of available funds, we have stabilization fund, which has a balance of $843,225.28. We need to spend $39,915.24 to go toward our snow deficit. leaving a balance in the stabilization fund of $803,309.76. We'll also need to transfer all of our free cash, totaling $168,230, to go toward the snow deficit. So the snow deficit is cured by utilization of both of those funds. I just kind of put at the bottom, and I mentioned this again at the last meeting, the increase in education expenses is $375,508. Again, consider that against the total revenue that we have. Our total revenue growth for FY26 is $347,438.58. So that's the total amount we have available for everything. But what I wanted to do on the bottom is just kind of indicate what our assessments, and I call them fixed costs. So it's the increase in the schools, the increase in the regional dispatch assessment of $14,549, the increase in county retirement of $108,789, increase in health insurance of $65,500. The total of those increases that I just enumerated is $564,346. Again, applied against our new revenues, $347,438.58. Before we even look at any municipal budgets, giving them $1, we have a structural deficit of almost $217,000. So that's a quick summation of where we stand. It's not a good situation, but it is at this point something that we need to address, obviously, for town meeting. So our revenue growth is minuscule in comparison to our increase in our costs.
Can I ask, there were two things I picked up on. There was $21,000, looks like, for a wage study. That
Yeah, I put that in because one of the problems that we've identified, that the board has identified, is the ability to attract and retain staff. And there was a wage and classification study done many years ago, but it is substantially out of date. So I would not suggest that it stands on its own, but if we're going to add it to the override, I think it's money that's well spent and will give us an opportunity to understand whether we're in line with our market competitors or we're not in line with our market competitors. But that kind of came from some conversations that I've heard over the last few weeks.
And then I noticed some of the numbers are higher in this budget than they were in the budget last week. Like there's 10% extra added in for the select board budget.
Yeah. So what I did do, Corey, is I put in money to fund the town administrator's salary at $110,000. I don't feel that should be an override issue. So yeah, that one is within the balanced budget. But I fear that if you go with the existing salary, your chances of hiring somebody with any level of experience is pretty slight. But again, that's up to you and the board to decide whether that's appropriate.
And then I noticed some of the wages were increased slightly, like by 0.5%. In the last budget, the library director was at 2.5 increase, and in this one he's at a 3% increase.
Yeah, and those are the things that we got to go through and reconcile. I just finished this today,
Okay.
So I certainly welcome your changes and anyone that has any revisions. I don't profess that it was literally last minute. I thought I had an extra day because I thought you guys were meeting on Thursday, and then I found out on Monday you're meeting today. So scramble.
I think we did have a conversation about the additional position that we believe is necessary, but perhaps should be on the credit block, and that would be the assistant clerk in the selectman's office. We had talked about potentially thinking that maybe we'd have to suck it up and go without that, but because I mean there are some substantial cuts in some of the other departments for sure. And of course, we haven't had specific conversations, for example, with any department chair and said, oh, by the way, we're cutting $100,000 from your bill. What's it going to look like if the override doesn't pass? because that's critical, some of, because there will be some personnel loss. We do have some attrition, and we're not hustling to rehire. We're trying to do that in a sane manner, but.
Just one change. If you go to the ambulance service on the third page, so the cost of the contract settlement is the number that says 637,760 should be 659,771. Again, I didn't have an opportunity to change it between meetings.
Did we ever pay back the ambulance bill receivables? It was like $100,000 that we borrowed from them at special town meeting.
So I don't know what the status of any payback, but I can tell you that this budget is predicated on the low level of ambulance receipts. I can't recall whether it's 400 or 420, but I think in the last budget it was either 500 or 520. So we've pushed that back down.
But I remember when we took $100,000 away from them, we always said we had to pay that back at town meeting this year, and I don't see that in the budget, like paying them back.
I think we just take out less money at town meeting.
One way of doing it. It wasn't on 5:30, I think.
So this budget is well, like I said, it's either 500 or 400 or 420, whatever the amount was that had been in place prior to this current year is what we rolled it back to.
When you look at this, when you came up with this structural deficit,
Yeah,
so you have these four items there. Why are these highlighted? Are these highlighted
because they are really numbers that are given to us that we don't negotiate and we don't change. So unlike the departmental budgets, we have some ability to change and revise. These are numbers that are given to us, and we have an obligation to fund them. So it's unfortunately
so they're separate from? Well, they're in there.
They're in there. They're in there, but those costs alone really drive our budget increase.
But these also.
Yep.
These do also, but it doesn't show here.
Yeah, the municipal increases are pretty small when you think about the magnitude of the ones that I enumerated. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 items. The 564,346. But they're in there. They're in there. So if you look at the balanced budget, those numbers are embedded in that balanced budget.
So if we took that administrator clerk position out, that would reduce the override number, or?
No, it would reduce the amount of the total, that 14,924,000. It would reduce that number.
Yeah, and the override would then
And it
stay
would,
the same.
and it would reduce the amount that we're needing to get from the stabilization fund by that amount of money.
Yep.
Could that $22,000 get moved to the library to cover, like, the wage increases that are desperately needed over in the library?
That's up to you if you want to move it. I'm sorry,
What's the budget number?
the total?
Yeah.
So the total balance budget number is $14,924,144.
Well, how much are we gonna owe?
In terms of,
How much short are we gonna be?
so we're short $553,623.
500,000?
550,000. Yeah, and that's the number that I put down as a possibility for an override.
Yeah. Now, could they tap the school budget for that? I know you don't want it, but can it be done?
Understand, it's sort of like when we get the regional dispatch number.
I know. Can you take 500,000 out of it to bail us out?
Because the other towns have, in other words, the other 4 towns have already voted the budget.
Yeah.
That's the budget. It's just like the Monty Tech budget is up 11%. But since a lot of.
I know, I understand.
Yeah, so you have to, I mean, so you just.
We gotta work earlier on that.
Yeah. And even that is difficult because so much of theirs is fixed costs too.
Yeah, and I would like to highlight the school assessment for the town of Barre originally came in at 8%. And they worked diligently to get it down to our assessment of 4.5% or 4.05%. And there's some pain points there. There's gonna be nine folks laid off.
The school's eating the town up. Crazy. Somebody's gonna say no.
Can I start at the top? I mean, it seems to me we're top heavy on administration. We need teachers, they deal with the kids. But we've got so many administrators and assistants and why can't we look at that?
Well, they're their own organization. And I will remind everyone, like, I'm pretty open with having everyone talk, but this is a regular finance committee meeting. So, you know, if you want to assess or speak, address the committee and the select board, we'll have our public hearing next week, where we'll allow public comment. But I'm definitely open to having a two-way conversation on that, but we just don't want this to drag out, so we're here till 10 o'clock at night tonight.
We get decisions made.
Yeah.
We can have a hearing next week.
Yeah, here's your blueprint. I mean, this gives you a painful balanced budget. And like I said, you can move the money around so long as you kind of stay within that revenue number that we have.
Greg, you have, this column is TA recommendation.
Yeah,
TAU?
that's the numbers that I inherited. So me is FY26 balance. And the exception is the town administrator's salary, which was budgeted at 93, something. But I just want to say for those who recall, I was here a year and a half ago, and that number was bumped up to 103 or 105.
But 103.
103. And again, if you kind of look what's going on in communities, I think it's imperative that you get someone who's willing to stay here more than a year. Because you don't want me back, because a year from now I'm not going to be here.
Going south.
I'm heading south.
We just enjoy you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the way that you have this, nobody loses a job, right?
Oh, no, that's not true.
No,
Loses.
No,
it's not good.
that's not true.
Okay, so
We
who's at
assume-
risk of
we
losing a
assume-
job?
We assume, okay, that the $100,000 that's going to be cut additionally from the police could definitely impact that department and losing personnel. We
No,
have-
but like, so by shorting that budget $100,000, will somebody be laid off because of it?
Well, that's up to the department head.
I mean,
The potential's there, yes.
Yeah, the potential is there. As I said, we have by attrition a person who left, but we have a relatively newbie person who is, I think, in the academy, kind of thing. That's tough. We do have a situation that I think the chief and I have talked at length about a number of times, and that the town of Barre pays the total amount for the school resource officer. And that was a decision before the chief, the other chief made, that they wanted to have total, kind of in charge of this person who was gonna be a resource officer representing the police department. But, the chief and I have had conversations about saying to the other four towns, hey, we have to put an officer in the schools for obvious reasons and so forth, and so on. So we think that we believe we're gonna go in there and do some negotiation with the district and say, we're not gonna do this. We'll have to do 38% of it, because Barry's 38% of the district's budget, but let's see if we get the other towns to kick in. If they want to kick in and they want to do this, and if Hardwick wants to say, no, we'll do this, we'll send one of our people, and doubtful of lying that that's going to happen. So we think there might be some maneuvering room there, but I do not believe that this is without layoffs. I mean, I don't know, but the chief, and we're going to do some no hires in the roads department. Hires that we really need. That's unfortunate there.
It's important to note, right, the police budget already reduces from 11 down to 10.
Yes.
And that 100,000 potential is on a reduction on top of that.
Right. And the problem you have there, of course, is because they have the 3 shifts, and they have covered so much overtime because everybody's on vacation. They're so tight. Okay, if I'm on vacation, overtime's filling in for me. That's a problem. And so that being said, they have like an $89,000 overtime budget left in their budget. So no, and you see that we have in the fire department the situation with the gentleman who is the inspector that was left open when the chief moved up. But quite frankly, we're at a point where the chief is on the ambulance all the time because we're continuing to try to struggle to hire there. We just did finish the contract with that. We're really stretched to try to get paramedics because we're not high payers. So I would hate to say, don't worry, no one's. I don't believe that's the case.
It is open for recommendations if you.
I recommend the 22,000 for the administrative clerk get moved over to the library. If pay is an issue, they're the lowest paid in the entire town. I'd hate to see 5-6 more people looking for a job out of the library. So, if it's not going to save money on the overrides, and we're just moving stuff around.
Just know we're gonna come back for it. We're gonna be, we can go it, but we're gonna come back at some point and ask for additional help. Again, depending on the TA that we hire too. Right, I mean, that could solve it too.
So is that are you making a motion for it?
Yeah, I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
The administrative clerk.
Motion fails. No second.
We need to go, right?
I'm just confused why we need a second person in that department. I mean, it got a 33% increase last year. So now we need an assistant for an assistant. That's the part that confuses me. I know there's a lot of work there because we go through town administrators, but if we have a qualified town administrator in, like what's the need?
Is the question. I've been selecting 3.5 years and have 3 TAs. And it's a very, very difficult transition, and we're just lucky to get Greg, who kind of has knows a little bit about the town, so it's not as big a lift as for some people, and he has so much experience. But if we, right now, he's working really with a person. It's just an impossible job. I mean, we're doing the basics, but there's a lot of other stuff we should be doing that we just don't get to do.
he's also here 2 days a week. I mean, that's,
Yeah, you know, that's true.
and his 2 days are probably worth 3 days with other people, but, you know, if Greg was here 5 days a week, you know, 4, like, so,
I haven't had one of those yet.
yeah, we'll get there. At 110, we might get there.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not as confident that 110 is going to do it.
Mhm.
I think if I were applying for a job, and I don't say this in any disrespect to the community, or to us, okay? Is if I look and say, because we must be talked about in, at Mass Municipal, right? I mean, come on. And if I'm looking for a job and I say, Jesus, nobody stays there. I wonder why, nobody stays there. And so I would be reluctant to apply unless I was a little bit desperate for a job. So, or looking for a challenge beyond a challenge. So, I worry that 110 may not be enough to get somebody to say, this must be a great place. You drive through the community, it's beautiful. No question about it. And then you look and you go, wow. So we have not gotten a ton of applicants.
About 20.
Yeah.
20?
About 20.
Anybody, how many with experience?
That's not good.
I mean, there's some with government experience, but you don't have someone that's worked in another town in the chief administrative position.
So it's a big learning curve. But we will have to do the best we can do.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you want to entice somebody with experience at that role, that's
Not
not going to touch it.
Did you administer in the town you lived in?
And I've never lived and worked in the same town.
It's not
Better that way?
Well, I like to say, if there's a problem, I'll shut the lights off.
right.
You gotta find someone who's willing to kind of look at the job like that, who's willing to put in whatever time is necessary.
Exactly.
And,
I agree.
culturally, people have shifted a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Is I'm old school. Maybe not everyone thinks like that.
I mean, it's not shooting the matter what we do.
No.
No, it's balanced at this point.
Yeah, we just need to add in that 22,000 for
Right.
the fire,
We're taking care of that Friday.
and we'll make
I
that.
mean, if you wanted to, you could use this 22 and get away.
You could.
If we're not going to do the assistant.
You could.
Administrative clerk and make that change. It takes care of, so we're not adding.
Yeah, so the number is 22,011. 22,000.
Okay, and this one is 22,274.
274.
So it's almost a wash.
And that pays for the wage increases on the,
Fire.
for 1 year.
We're this close
Yeah.
to finishing the negotiations, so
I'll make that motion.
Motion for,
To move the 22,274 over to fund the ambulance contract, the wage increases for the ambulance contract.
I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second to transfer the funds on the budget from the administrative clerk roll over to the fire department to fund contractual obligations.
So specifically would be EMT salaries.
Oh, EMT salaries.
EMT
All
salaries.
right, my apologies, the EMT salary line under ambulance services.
Greg, does that equal the 659,771 number?
Yes, it does, sir.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
So that'll increase that line by 22,000. What's that number there? $22,274.
Yep.
Hopefully free up the chief so we can do inspections too.
I'm busy.
And I think, the select board will be spending time with the department heads to say, how does this change your work? What's your recommendations for making these $100,000
And it could be amended on the floor at town meeting.
Oh, yeah, that could be a real fun time. The thing that is, if people go in there and they say, put $100,000 back to the fire department, and we can't come out of there without a balanced budget.
No, that's the challenge, there's a budget.
We need the override. We need the
You
override.
need the, well, you know, financially, you know, you need to do an override.
Yeah, because every town, or not every, but most of the towns around have needed an override. We're not alone.
No. We're not alone, and I mean, this, between the increase of wages and the wage disparity that's occurred over the last 5-7 years, you know, that alone, I think the federal minimum wage is still $7.25, but the minimum wage for the town, state of Massachusetts is $15. So you have folks that were getting,
No, they're exempt. Municipalities are exempt from paying Massachusetts minimum wage. They can pay federal. I've had cafeteria
just so that
workers
you
make
get
less.
anybody.
Yeah.
It's just the fixed costs.
just imagine working for, I don't think you're gonna, not Massachusetts, like we're one of the highest cost of living states in the
County retirement, health insurance, all those are huge numbers. And we're stuck with them. There's nothing we can do with it.
My concern is if an override goes through this year, we're still, based on Greg's math, I mean, we're still gonna go into it $216,000 in the hole next year. Like, it doesn't fix that. Like, we have to fix our spending.
I guess we can't afford the ambulance we have, or the police department, or the library. Is that case? I don't know. To me, we
Well, that's what it comes down
we
to.
should. Yeah, it does.
That's what it comes down
It
to.
really does.
Everybody has a vote. We
Yeah.
make the cuts, and we have the community we have.
Right.
And you live with what you have for services, and that's just the
Exactly.
way, it's just the way it goes.
Yeah, if you want the services, you have to pay.
Well, if the override was to pass, it would eliminate the structural deficit,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
For 1 year. That's
That's for
Well, I know I keep talking to you about, you know, the work in the state.
yes, yes.
Trust me when I tell you, there's tremendous pressure on school reform for the reform of how they pay Chapter 70. Right now, Barre has zero revenue
Yeah.
in Chapter 70. Now think about that.
Keep mentioning
And
that.
in addition to that, they have had the same Chapter 70 number for 16 years. So what has happened is the locals, okay, have pushed money into it to try to keep the schools going, but certainly it has really diminished the opportunities for doing the municipal side, because the schools are in difficult situations. There's 234 towns right now who are in the same boat we are, okay? And lots of administrative pressure on, because there's more and more schools that are in trouble. And so now all of a sudden, we probably should do something about that. And as I said to you before, you remember School Opportunity Act, that big thing passed maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, right before COVID? Billions and billions of dollars. Okay, 15 school districts get 90% of the money. 15. And you know what they're Lowell, Lawrence, you know, Bedford, blah, blah, blah. They're not us. And so the next reform, and they're made it so that it's not one of these commissions with 9,000 different groups involved. It's just the Department of Local Services, it's the DESI, Department of Ed, and somebody from the governor's office.
My concern is the way it's been set up, Maureen, is the entire cut is put on the 40% budget of the town, not on the school side. Because we go last with the town, with the school meeting, like the budget's already passed. We
Well, no, the budget's not passed yet, the two towns still up, us and
and both on the same day.
It's on the same day. I mean, that could change on the floor. I mean, there's always be a motion. It's a long process. If the budget didn't pass, like, that means another special.
The thing that everybody thinks, we can get it from the schools. Here's the problem with that, when you think about that. Barre is 38% of the So if you, cut the school assessment, in Barre, $100,000. You really don't cut the Barre assessment. You cut the whole budget, $100,000. But if you want to get $100,000 out of Barre, the school district has to cut, 3 times that much money, because they, from all of the other towns. Now, the other towns sit down and go, wait a minute, so Barre doesn't want to do this, so we're going to lose this and this and this, we're doing that. So it's very hard to get all 5 towns to say, yeah, that's a great idea, let's not afford that. So there's no question, it's a process. What is in the process is regulated by the Department of Education and so forth. So the towns have to vote the budget down, and then the district has 30 days to go in and reduce the budget, or not. They could just say, no, we're sending it back the same way. Reduce the budget, and then it goes back to the towns again. And then, okay, then they could say, no, we're not voting that, we want a lower number. And they could do it. And we've done it all the way to December 1st. At December 1st, the Department of Ed sends the commissioner in, and the commissioner looks at all the dates, blah, 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 and during this time, the district goes on what they call a 1/12 budget. So it's very complex, but, you know, the district has done it before, and it has had situations, and it's almost never Barre, ever. As Barre has not ever been with towns that was usually New Braintree and, well, this time public stuff. They're the ones that sometimes do it. But we've done it before, and, you know, you could get a small amount of relief, you would even get a personal, an individual salary out of it. Because they will, the other towns will not take away their school district because you can't afford yours this year. Because most of the time Barre is okay, and the other towns struggle a little more. And I mean, and New Braintree had a larger increase as it others, I think, than Barre.
They had 6% on a percentage
So
basis.
you can do it, but then you're without a budget and you can't set your tax rate. You haven't got a school budget, you can't set the tax rate. So that's why they put all that pressure on you in December, because you know you need to fix it and the schools need to fix it, so they need to get, so it's not, some people say, well, just don't pay the $300,000 if they increase this year. Well, you know, that means you have to cut 3 times that much out of the whole budget. So the district cut the budget by a little over $1 million, their budget. They've already laid off 9 people, and all the other towns would have to say, yeah, well, that's fine with us. They're not gonna say that.
And
I'd be shocked. I mean, anything can happen.
yeah, 100%. If we were at 8% assessment still, I think you'd see more towns, because then Harvard would have been on, or New Braintree would have been at like 12%. What they reduced, and I would have been on board with that as well. They reduced it to what's a reasonable number considering the circumstances. And the other aspect is, if the town of Barre doesn't approve the budget number there, we shoot ourselves in the foot with the other 4 towns, and we need to go back to a special meeting to reassess because we didn't meet the budget numbers. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, if it's only one town, no, they don't care. It's your problem.
Yeah, but if we approve the lower budget because of the schools,
Yeah,
we
we
have to
still
go
fix it.
back, we have to fix those numbers. So that adds more expense because elections cost money too.
So there's no question that anything that we can do to work with schools and everything else to bring some of those costs down. I don't think anybody, and there's another effort by Mass Municipal to increase reimbursements for transportation. That would help a lot. Because right now it's supposed to be 100% reimbursement. We've never seen it. Probably never will. Okay, and remember, your special ed transportation is more than regular day transportation. There's no reimbursement for it unless it's this very complex circuit breaker formula, which doesn't really kick in until you spend so much money. So there's no question that we as a community have gripes with the way in which they're funding education and the requirements that they make.
I mean, we should see, you know, the state dishes out quite a bit of money for other expenses that they probably could tail back and fund the local education, so that way the burden isn't on the communities like ours. And it's a challenge, because we're, to Dr. Marshall's point, is the formula is not correct.
May I make a comment? The town that I retired from, on July 1st, I'm personally taking a $85 a month pay cut, because what they did to try to balance their budget was they increased the percentage of what people have to contribute for their health insurance. And that was a way they helped their budget.
Well,
So, I mean, it's just
we
something
have-
to consider.
We have a lousy reimbursement for our employees, one of the lowest I've ever seen. I mean, if we moved it up 1%, gave them 1% more toward their, because I forget what it is, it's, I wish should know this, it's like.
It was 60-something, I
it's
remember,
very,
yeah, it
very
was,
low. So that would be something, if we were 9, 10, or 20, 80, we are nowhere near.
We chopped a lot of the expense on upkeep and maintenance on town buildings too, and they all have issues, so that's gonna be a ongoing issue for us.
Oh, yeah, and we chopped that in '23, when Jessica was still here. I mean, that's what kept us, and if we go back to that cycle, you know, we fully identified that what the committee, what the town and the funding was not sustainable, because you could forecast that the revenues were not going to work with how everything was increasing, the cost of, you know, utilities and labor and all of that. I'm not surprised I'm not shocked that we're here today. I mean, I could have told you that in 22, 23. I did mention it several times in those years that we were heading down a path, but the only thing to do at this point is as costs increase, is you either accept that fact with the wages that are there and the cost of utilities, and you, as a town, we work to fund those, or we cut the services that we're accustomed to.
what's it cost to run town hall a year? Are we bringing enough in rental?
You know, the heating and stuff, and there's other repairs that we really need to do. We've got ARPA monies in a contract to have it painted, because it's really kind of in tough shape, painting wise, and they're gonna be doing that this year. We hoped we have some money to also fix the fire escapes, because technically, okay, the last building commissioner said that they, you know, we shouldn't be using the third floor here, and we shouldn't be using the second floor because there's really no fire escape that they feel is safe. But because of the age of the building and repairing those, you have to have special metal people who come in and do that, and so it's not a cheap thing. But there are bathrooms that don't work, you know, and so this place is, let's say it's overworked. I mean, we're everywhere in this building, but we have fire escapes there. If you go upstairs to that third floor with me, and you look out there, and I say, now, how bad would that fire have to be before you go down there? And if you're handicapped, of course, there's no access, because the elevator shut down.
Shouldn't be.
And, you know, think about that. So we do have some issues in our buildings. The other night at the highway department, the new superintendent said, okay, people, you understand what bad shape this salt thing is, right? And so they're saying, well, okay, so I said, so you're gonna shingle? And they said, well, if you go inside, it has been left, you know, salt, wet, water, you can just imagine. So lots of places you can put your pen through the, so that's a problem. So yeah, okay, a big tarp for now, but you and I both know, we just can't re-shingle it. It's huge, re-shingling. So that's an issue of concern, and that's sort of a town building. So
It's got $100,000 worth of product in it.
More than that.
Or 200,000, whatever it is.
yeah. So anyway,
Would it make sense to look into, like, temporarily shutting down the town hall and not using it?
well, we thought about doing that. Remember, his historic building, but shutting it down, what does that accomplish?
Well, we're paying to heat it, we're paying for
Well, you
repairs,
still
we're paying.
have to heat it. You mean really drain it all and, you know,
Yeah.
shut it down, mothball it? I would tell you, if they would vote for anything in the override, that would be it.
Yeah.
I mean, people are sort of into the historic nature of this community far more than I ever thought, until I said, could we paint the things around the common white again? Yeah, you know, trust me, to their grave to fight on that. Okay.
Hardwood floors at Buckle.
Yeah. So I mean,
But you know, from my perspective, that's like the nickel and diamond that's gonna get us in a perpetual override situation year in and year out. And if things on the inflation side of the economy level out, we could be okay for a couple of years here on after. You never really know, but we could be. Okay for a few years before we, you know, just with the regular levy limit of 2.5%. Because we have, over the last 4 to 5 years, we've increased wages. So there is still, you know, to your point, the library is Joe's been doing a great job with incrementally increasing, which is kind of what we were trying to do going back to 21. Bring in certain wages of certain members of the government up. I know, we brought up the town clerk's salary, we brought up, DPW salaries. There's been CBAs for the 3 different, unions in town. All of that adds up, but it also, when you're locked into those contracts, it doesn't give us wiggle room. So now we're looking at individual line items here. Usually a budget, you're looking at bottom line of each department versus, all right, we're gonna take, 10,000 from here and shift it over to here. Exactly. It's a tough spot. It's a tough spot. And I mean, it comes down to who shows up at town meeting and who potentially shows up at the ballot box to make those determinations of where, our committees here just offer recommendations. We don't set the budget. That's the legislative body of the town meeting, and then the voters at the ballot box. And it's gonna fall into the hands of the residents of the town to decide, do we cut services? Or do we maintain services and we pay a little bit more? That's what's gonna come down to.
My issue is we're already paying a lot. If this override goes through, and then the fire truck, I'm over $10,000 a year for a house.
Not all of us are that.
No.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. Yeah. It is disproportionately paid by,
Well, it's a residential tax, let's face it, this is a community where if you have one
No
tax rate.
business.
And so whether you're, selling power sports or selling beer, or whatever you are, you're all paying the same kind of deal.
88% of our revenue comes from residential property
90
tax.
something, yeah.
It's not, we don't have big industries, we're not a Spencer, we're not some of these other towns, a Holden that has all this industry or business to would give a lower tax rate in all of these additional services. The reality is, we're bare bones. You compare us to a town like that, like a Holden, they have a whole Parks and Rec department, you know what I mean? But they're kind of swimming in revenue, where over here, we're drowning.
True.
Shrewsbury's swimming. I don't think both.
Well, they're all pretty well off.
Yeah, they're doing well.
They're doing better than the residential communities and the
Yeah.
rural communities. And the schools are a burden, and it's hard. It's hard to manage.
Yes.
But, so moving forward here, just a high-level understanding, we have essentially 2 budgets prepared in this one document. We have a budget showing what it would cost to be balanced, and then what the overall cost would be to maintain our services, excluding the recommendation that was approved from the Finance Committee to move the administrative clerk. So that's been eliminated from the budget here. Any further questions on the budget?
We don't have a number yet for dollars, the tax rate would increase dollars per,
No, but we should get that for,
because that is
Public
an
hearing.
issue. Somebody's paying 10 grand for,
If it passes, then
Yeah.
what would be the impact on your property?
if
my
his property goes up
yours?
$100, I don't know if he's willing to
Yeah.
do that or not.
The fire truck made it go up 125.
well, it's gonna go down a little bit once the common
7
falls
years,
off.
yeah.
And
Yeah, because there's 3 things that are falling off.
that's $125 over 7 years,
No,
right?
no.
Over a year.
No, a year.
6 on one side.
All right.
We can get that, right?
What's that?
The potential impact. to
Yeah,
the
I'll
tax
ask,
rate.
I'll ask the assessors who would have that information, because it's a factor with the total valuation of the town.
Mhm.
I don't know what that number
We
is.
should have that for the public hearing, right?
Yeah, I'll ask the assessors to calculate that.
Okay. Excellent.
Well, I will make a motion to present this budget, or how would that motion even be made?
If we just want to offer a recommendation for the 2 budgets.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to offer a favorable recommendation for the level-funded budget, and a separate one for the override budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, favorable action on accepting the two budgets minus the changes to the previously discussed department. All in favor?
Aye.
We would entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we push forward the level funded budget and the override budget with the change in the administrative clerk, 22,274, moved over to the EMT salary line item.
We have a motion made and seconded to accept the FY '26 balanced budget as it appears in our document, and also the numbers that are included for override. And those in favor?
All right.
Right. That we would, put this before the public in our hearing coming up. And obviously, I will ask department heads to be here for the hearing, because I think it would be useful to hear, what their strategies are gonna be. And hopefully it's almost a week, so they won't be just crazed. Oh, it's a very, I think just sort of as the schools and also as the town. After COVID, we had ESSER money, this money, that money, that money. We had a lot of money where you could do some things within the community and within the schools. And so people were hired in the schools and stuff that now, of course, have lost jobs and not here anymore and so forth. But we're not the only town that's suffering through this. If you go to any of the municipal meetings, I mean, whether it's Winchton passed a $1.9 million override. Winchton, just like shocking to me.
That's what I'm saying.
Shocking. I know that certainly North Brookfield is at the edge. They know that they have to, but they don't want to. And of course, they have an issue with their schools, which is, shall we say, flight. I mean, half of them are Guavin, half of them are Tempasqua, and I think graduated 22 kids. I mean, so they're at a point where, and they've been struggling to sort of, I think, get involved with Waybog, and now Waybog says, we don't want you. Okay, that was pleasant. So that's a difficult thing. So pushing more regionalization, that's what the state's game is. You're not going to have your own fire department anymore, so forget that kind of thing. And there's some strategy to that. There's some loss of control with that, as you see with the schools. But in our dispatches.
No, absolutely. We're moving on to warrant reviews. Is the select board staying and enjoying that, or?
Oh, be happy to.
Okay.
Board members?
Yep.
Just a quick note, this is a draft that's here. My brain froze on the date of town meeting. The town meeting is the 24th day of June. If you look at the script that's here,
25th.
it says 25th. That would be an unfortunate mistake.
Yes.
We caught it in time, though.
Yes,
Did.
indeed.
So I was sitting here looking at it, and I checked my calendar, and I went, oh, that's not the right day. That's me. That's just me kind of under the gun to try to get it done as quickly as possible.
So let's see here. So Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, and Article 4. Article 1, 2, and 3. Article 4 is for the snow and, I mean, those are recurring articles.
1, 2, and 3.
And I've given you the detail on Article 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It won't necessarily be in the version of the warrant that gets posted, but
Yeah.
for your purposes, that's the amount that we need.
Because these are FY25 expenses,
Yes?
snow and ice,
Mhm.
fire.
And will there, sorry, I apologize. On Article 3, will there be payments of bills from the prior fiscal year?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay.
Could we get I mean, it is what it is, the 208,000 for the snow and ice. Could we get a breakdown for like the salt, the sand, the overtime, the vehicle?
I know that the treasurer has been working on that to make sure things are in the right spots.
Okay.
So I'm guessing Jesse will have something for us
Okay.
for the hearing.
So I'd entertain a motion for favorable action on Articles 1, 2, and 3. And then if there's any discussion on Article 4, we could.
I would second it and even throw in Article 4.
All in favor?
Aye.
Favorable on 1, 2, 3, 4. Article 5, 6, 7, and we just discussed the omnibus budget. We discussed the omnibus schools. We discussed the override budget. We discussed PEG access, that's
Wording's good.
Article 10.
It's a pretty standard article.
Yeah.
I just don't know the dollar amount.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we will have something for
Do you guys ever wrap up negotiations with Charter over that?
Oh, we could not.
No. Talk to Verizon.
We're working with them on two different matters.
Yeah.
The PEG access funds are obviously things that we utilize to fight back as well as to provide opportunities for the public to interface with our meetings and that sort of stuff. So that's what that's for. And we have an extension to try to negotiate the new contract, which is now, at least a year. They don't even respond. So it's sort of like this, Starlink is becoming more popular. Right?
Verizon coming in here with Fios, and they can offer it to internet, and whether or not you give them permission. But the fact that they want to come in here with that is
How do you
huge.
know they want it?
You had the meeting here. They were going to run fiber over from the other
Oh,
towns.
well,
So that's Fios. That
yeah,
same
but
line does
he's
everything.
talking about running it up one street.
I know.
Okay.
But once it's there, it's light.
Yeah.
They connect it pole to pole to pole. Their real money comes when they offer TV. It's not with
The
internet.
problem is the pole stuff. All of the space on all of those poles is owned by
Verizon,
Spectrum.
no. Every other pole is owned by, in this town, every other pole is owned by either Verizon
Yeah.
or Charter.
I think he's right.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, because of the
Spectrum Charter.
telephone lines.
Charter.
Yeah, but Verizon already owns space on all the poles.
Okay, let's.
Every other.
Every other pole, right?
So we got to run the
Yeah,
wire.
yeah. If you look at the tag on the pole, it will tell you who owns the pole, and it switches. Like,
Okay, well,
you might have a leg up on it.
Well, that'd be great, because we have no competition.
So anyway,
I think I'm on to, I think Article 5 through 12 are general articles. Motion for favorable action, favorable recommendation on Articles 5 through 12.
make a motion for favorable action on 5 through 12. Articles 5 through 12.
We have a motion for favorable action on Articles 5 through 12.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Oh, you will. Now we take a
Any
vote.
discussion, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, on to Article 13. So this is a little different one. I think we've seen this one before. For the meals tax.
Yeah.
See if the town will vote to accept the provisions of the Mass General Law to impose a local sales tax on restaurant meals originated within town by a vendor at a rate of 0.75% of the gross receipts of the vendor from the sale of restaurant meals. So basically, it's 75 cents for every $100.
And the vendor or the restaurateur or whatever does not pay any of this. And from what we understand from the state, the software that they provide for the state meals tax, you just open another thing and you say, click this too, and it just immediately goes, and we get, the town would get a check from the state of what they, so we don't even have to collect it.
It's a pass-through, it's a consumer, it's a tax on the consumer, not off of the
Exactly.
residents.
And there's so few things that you can do other than the residential tax that, that we can get the data that almost, 75% of all the cities and towns do this. I mean, when you go to Hardwick and at Hardwick Crossing and have a nice dinner, you are paying, okay.
Oddly enough, I saw it back on Hardwick's. So I don't know if that's to get rid of it, but it is on their their town meeting this year. which I found it odd, because I knew they have it, because you pay when you go to, yeah.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
somebody wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah, I don't know if they're getting rid of it. The way it was written is the same way this is written. So I don't know, do you have to put it on every, is it?
Oh, maybe you do, I don't know.
I have no
I
idea.
don't know. Well, we'll find out.
I mean, it is a way to drive revenue. I don't think we're gonna be solving any sort of structural deficits
No.
with this, but it could potentially fund a portion of an ambulance, a police car,
Absolutely.
Salary?
salary, you know, an administrative clerk.
It would be ongoing.
Yes.
And it doesn't really hurt the restaurateur or the person who's producing the meals. Although that was, I don't know if that was misunderstood at the meeting last time, but that was a pretty vehement reaction about we were going after somebody's family. And so I don't know if that was just not well understood. But we can help understand it better, I guess.
I'll make a motion for favorable recommendation of Article 13.
We have a motion for favorable recommendation on Article 13.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Charles gonna kill me. I'll never get home and ricotta ever again.
Article 14, this looks like a
It's a repeat from last.
repeat from last year as well, so the
Oh,
Department
pretty much,
of Public Works, some change to certain language.
Right.
And I don't think I think is it not creating a roads commission, is that correct?
Well, no, it's not doing a roads commission, but it's sort of.
It leaves language open in case that happens in the future, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a shifting the primary authority to the selectmen.
For the director of the DPW Public Works to,
I'll make a motion for favorable recommendation for Article 14.
we have a motion for favorable recommendation on Article 14.
Second that?
We have a second and a third, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gotta change it, you gotta do it.
Difference a year makes.
Well, it's time to digest. Article 15, so this is the appointment of the part-time assessor, so this was originally put in as a budget item, if everyone recalls, when the assessors presented to the finance committee, and they pushed us to an article.
Mhm.
But this will still impact
The budget.
the budget, because we have to fund the article, we have to raise and appropriate.
Yeah, it's a reason appropriate. Do you know how much money they were looking at?
22,800?
That's it, so that's the total of 15 and 16.
Okay,
So it's both of them.
Oh.
And I have the breakdown in front of me,
yeah.
but the total amount is.
You're not in the
12.28.
balanced budget though, right?
But yeah, it's in there.
Oh, it's in there?
Yeah, I put it in there, it's one of the ones that I dropped in right at the end.
This is identical to last year, just a different dollar amount, right?
Well, I think this is gonna have a part, the potential to hire an assessor as a
Last
part-time.
year's did too. It was like a board member, I
Yeah,
think they had
before.
said, yeah.
Yeah. To help alleviate the workload, because it's only one person over there really doing it, just Jesse, I think.
I'll make a motion for favorable action on both 15 and 16.
So we have a motion for favorable action, Article 15, Article 16.
Second?
And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
So these are things we may not know, we might have to deep dive a little bit and then public hearing, but could also provide some intel, but I'm open for anything. This is a zoning change. Article 17.
There's 3 zoning changes in a row. One's for gravel at the, up in the High Plains area.
Or what, you want to school?
Yeah, the town of Barre owns the property there, there's a lot of gravel there, so the local DPW would like to, utilize the gravel. So that's going from 80 to
No,
20 to 30.
it's 20 going to 80, because you can only move gravel in accordance to the zoning bylaws in an R80 district.
15.
It's 15.
15.
R15, and it's going to 80. So that's what this is requesting, because the planning board couldn't give them a permit to remove gravel because it's not an R80.
Okay.
And it
So it's
meets-
gravel. Go ahead.
It meets the criteria for an
It
RAD.
does. The
Yeah.
land mass is a little bit greater, I think, than 80,000 square feet, for the land mass that's sitting there.
And then we have the Caruso request, which is again for Just the changing zoning.
Just a footnote on that gravel operation, that's gonna get us winter sand, it's gonna get us crushed gravel for dirt roads, and it's gonna give us a lot of benefit, stone, which should save
Yeah.
us buying product.
Well, good, because when you look at how we cut their budget, they're gonna need savings.
So
We don't have the equipment to screen it, though. Where are we gonna get that?
that would have to be rented
You
or
just rent them.
through the bid process, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, correct.
Excellent.
So the zoning board was favorable for this?
Well, they met with the planning board, but they couldn't give them a permit without this vote, so we gotta change the zoning, because you can only take gravel off of our 80,000 square foot lot or greater.
You could do it if it fell under the land use change, but we can't really call it a land use change right now. I mean, I suggested possibly having it, land use change being preparing for eventually selling the lots associated with that, but,
That gives us
they didn't go with
access.
it.
That gives us access to the bigger lot behind. It's like 20 acres behind it.
So that's privately owned, gravel.
Yeah, behind it, that's.
Oh,
that's
I thought the
privately
town
owned
of Barre
somewhere.
owned that.
No, that's privately.
Oh, I
owned.
thought on the Mass Land, not Mass Land Records, the GIS map, it said the town of Barre.
Are you thinking the field, Corey, where they play soccer and
No, it
all
was to
that?
the left of the field, like behind it.
That would be the old gravel pit,
Yeah, but that goes around, that's not owned by us.
yeah.
We own the
Private owner.
4 points of them.
Okay.
Up where the school
It's
used to be.
very back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's granite bounds there.
Yeah,
I went
both
to,
sides.
I went to school there. Yes, first and second grade.
So did I.
Wow.
And the building's gone now.
I feel the love.
On the Article 18, I just have some questions, and I did hear Mr. Caruso quickly talk about it, and he talked about like that would bring in like $100,000 worth of just permitting fees to the town. I guess I had questions on that. Has he already spoken on?
He didn't speak with any detail to the select board. He's met with the planning board. So I would suspect that if I could ask that he attend a hearing, so that if you have specific questions, he'd be amenable to asking, I'm sure.
I'm interested in all the, not only the fees, but it would add money to the water department, to the sewer department, only if they tie in though, because the property next to the post office, I don't know if any of them tied in.
Oh, those are private septic.
Yeah,
Sewer's
but
not there.
it goes right by there.
No, it does not.
Sewer doesn't go by
No,
there?
it's on Stetson Road. So our police station goes cross lots over to Stetson and ties in. The sewer main was run up Stetson to take care of Stetson Home back in the late 90s.
But they've got water.
But they have water.
Okay, I wasn't
So-
aware of that.
So
Okay.
he's on private septic there.
Okay. But water
This
goes
would
by
be-
there.
This would be town water, town sewer.
Okay.
The interesting thing not last night, I forget what night I'm at these meetings, it was Monday night, that, you know when the last increase in the water rate was? In 2011. I was shocked to hear that.
And then the other thing that he mentioned, which sounded really good, 6 of the units would be 55 plus, and would a walking path over to the senior center. So, yeah, I'd love to hear more about it.
We'll invite him.
Excellent. Well, we could always pass over Article 18, but how about, do we have a recommendation for Article 17?
I probably have more questions. I gotta look at the map. Mark says that the town doesn't own it. And he's probably right. I just thought I saw the town owned it.
I think this is for the 2 acres that the town does own.
Yeah.
Like change, moving it from an R15 to an R80. So it wouldn't affect the land the town doesn't own.
What does the changing the R80 to R20 do? Caruso?
Have to really ask him, this is like planning board stuff, I
Yeah.
don't want to comment on it. I think it provides him with the opportunity to do more things like he did near the post office, the dual homes,
Condos, two families,
yeah, whatever.
maybe two families are not allowed in R80 in the zone. You have to look at the zoning.
Yeah,
I think they are, but this would let them break the lots up to a smaller.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see the map, but I saw he has like a design up there, and it looked like the road went in and looped
So
around.
we'll definitely ask him to come and have a comment about that.
All right, let's hold on.
And
Well, we're still on Article 17 here. We need either a motion to pass over, a motion for favorable, unfavorable.
I'll make a motion to pass over.
Second?
Is the DPW going to be at that meeting? Will they be able to talk about
We
that?
certainly can get
On
that.
Article 17, we have a motion to pass over and a second.
Second, yes.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion to pass over on 18.
We have a motion to pass over Article 18.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Another zoning change. See if the town will change zoning for the property located at Worcester Road.
I'm assuming the room is true on this, and I'm excited about it. I think the town would really benefit from this. Is this for a gas station to be built?
We haven't been advised of that.
Oh, okay.
They're looking for a change, and they've been using it for commercial, basically.
Yeah.
Them, and even way back when it was, well, Bentley Gas, the building
Yeah.
that was there originally with the gas tanks that were stored in it, so it's been commercially for as long as I've been around, probably.
As long as I can.
You're right, right.
Yeah.
But, Corey, we haven't heard that.
Yeah.
Where's Bentley Gas?
I'm dating myself. They just, the little corner, it was a little blue building right in the corner by the health center entrance on RJ's property.
Oh, okay.
We used to store the bottles of gas in there.
And this is just something that they've been utilizing it for this purpose for like decades. And they just want it now to be formally
Yeah.
switched because they, that's what they store there.
It's formally, they want to formally switch it, but the intent is to have a gas station.
No.
No, we don't know
No
that.
one knows
We don't know.
that. This is
I
a,
thought Corey just
Well,
said.
That's the rumor
This
I
is,
heard, so.
this article specifically is for a zoning
Yeah.
change to change it to a business commercial zone. So that's all this article does, is it's a zoning change. What they do with the property, that's other
We'll
steps.
hear
down
about
the road.
later. I guess I'll make a motion to pass over it.
Motion to pass over Article 19.
Second? Yeah.
We have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we'll invite the planning board members as well who would like to speak to this and the individuals who have put this request forward.
Yeah, I mean, or if they have documentation they can submit that we can review before the end of the week. That'd be great. Article 20, Old Reservoir Dam.
Yes, I don't correctly spell reservoir.
Reservoir.
Yes.
Got an R hidden in there.
Yep. See, the town will urge the select board to accept the offer from the Massachusetts Office of Dam and Safety in coordination with Mass Department of Conservation.
We would recommend you pass over this. We have some information that we will be discussing with our attorneys regarding this matter, and we'll have information for you before the meeting.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Is this still a non-binding article, or would this be a binding article?
Well,
Town body
it
can't,
just says to urge the select board to accept.
yeah, they
So
can't
that's
force
not
us to
binding.
vote, urging us to take action, but
And that it may not be as appropriate as we thought or they thought when they put this forward, so.
Oh, understood.
And ban on single-use this is citizen petition. So this is a group of people feeling strongly that we should be doing more with microplastics, et cetera. I'm sure they will be there. I said, if you want to do this, you better be there, because if there are questions. And I know that there's probably not a lot of places in town that use, one plastic, but there are certainly some. And they need to give, like, notice, like,
Mhm.
I
your
think
6
they
months.
want
We're
to
still
pass
waiting.
over it, but we haven't voted on it.
We haven't.
You have to-
Yeah.
it's over it.
Understood.
Pass
On,
over.
so we still need, we're still on Article 20 here. We want to pass over that.
Motion to pass over Article 20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And Article 21, the ban on single-use plastics. Dr. Marshall just gave us a high-level overview.
What,
Would they be at the meeting next week to,
I can
Yeah.
see some people, if they see me when I'm walking around town, so they
Yeah.
always in my face about this, so yeah. I can ask some people to come and have a conversation about it.
I mean, this is not new. I think, like, I feel like right before COVID, the state was on its way to doing this statewide. And then with COVID and, like, not knowing what happened, like, they allowed plastic bags back. And now local communities are taking action there on it.
Yeah, we're not alone on this one.
No, I mean, there's paper everywhere now. And a lot of stores actually charge you for
Yeah.
Right.
the bags.
Bring your own bag.
Or you bring your own.
That's right.
That's what I like those.
Does anybody want to make a recommendation on Article 21?
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action? I got favorable action?
Favorable action, good.
Is that your motion?
Yes, it is.
So we have a motion for favorable action on Article 21.
No second.
I'll second.
Oh, we have a second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm on board. Get rid of the damn plastic bag.
You don't like seeing them in the trees? And
Yes, decorations.
Article 22, authorization to make payments for previously approved stipends.
This again was a citizen petition.
do you have any information on it?
I have information that this was something that was voted by the Water Commission and the Sewer Commission for this individual. And the individual ended up leaving employment in February, and others who got a stipend for some extra duties worked here for duration. I don't know how water and sewer folks would feel about this. I know you and I have had a conversation. I believe that this is something that would be best handled, quite frankly, by a person-to-person conversation either with Greg, myself, and this individual, and say, okay, you know, what are we doing here? And then if there's going to be a use of the enterprise fund by the Water and Sewer Commission for this purpose, they should do it.
But my understanding was both the Water and the Sewer Commission authorized it, but the treasurer couldn't pay it out because the select board didn't vote for it, or the town meeting didn't vote for it.
Selectmen.
Well, I read the letter, it said town meeting or select board vote.
Well, it's selectmen.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, you can do it at town meeting. It's just to me,
When does the town usually pay out a stipend position? Is it paid out after the completion of the cycle or at the beginning of the cycle?
at the completion.
This was for work that was
At
performed
the end of the cycle?
above and beyond the duties while there was no superintendent. So
Well,
once
yeah.
there was a
Well,
superintendent.
yes and no.
So it's not a
Yes
slip.
and no. I would not agree with you if that was exact. I would say this is something that the Water and Sewer Commission should respond to. I was not at their meetings when they made this decision to do this.
Maybe they'll speak about it at town meeting.
Yeah, exactly. And/or we have to put it in somewhere, or it'll come out of enterprise funds, so maybe it'll be a little easier to manage.
The DPW consists of 9 members, and it was never put in front of the whole DPW. Water had their meeting, sewer had their meeting, but it's 9 members, so it
Yep.
was never put in front of the whole body. It's important.
Oh, yeah, 100%. We're gonna pass over 22?
Yes. Pass over.
I'll make a motion to pass over it.
Got a motion to pass over Article 22.
And I'll second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right. I think we talked about Prop 2.5 already.
So I think that what, Greg and I, we talked about, you know, what will the vote look like? How will we set this up? And I don't think we have to either, to give us very specifics on this. Because is it that we vote a contingent budget and we vote, what we call a balanced budget? So we come out of town meeting with a balanced budget. But if it were passed, our question is, what if the town folks who were there say, no, we're not even gonna vote that we'll do the contingent discussion. I don't know if they can. I don't know if once the selectmen say, we put that exclusion on the ballot, and the ballot date is chosen and all that. So I think we need some, I need legal counsel to give us some direction.
Have you been part of override votes before?
Okay, so town council's already seen the language that's here, that's kind of broadly worded, and said that was fine. His suggestion was that at town meeting, the specific, not necessarily, you gotta make a decision whether you want to include that in the motion. I think it's too much to include all of those departments in those little line items. However, I think for the purposes of town meeting, for discussion purposes, town meeting absolutely should see every dollar that's in that override as we have it shown here. But the language on the vote of town meeting has to parallel what appears on the ballot. And so I think in this instance, town meeting should have access to all of that. And there should be information, whether it's a sheet that Ellen approves of, that's available for people to see at the ballot box in terms of what the expenses. But I think too much detail in the article, in my judgment, will cause people to vote no.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
They'll get overwhelmed and see too many numbers, and the reaction is no.
It always works that way.
So we have to, the board has to vote the ballot, because there's a long lead-in before you can hold the election on Monday.
Yeah.
So on Monday, the board will vote the amount similar, and it will be similar to the language that's in the warrant article.
So are you saying that even if it fails at town meeting, it's still gonna go to a ballot
I
vote?
don't know.
So yes, it could.
Once the selectmen call it with at least 2/3 vote, then the ballot election is held.
Pending the outcome of that, we may or may not go back to town meeting.
Right, pending the outcome of that, you either go back to town meeting, or if it's already been voted at town meeting that this is contingent,
We're done.
okay, it could be done, otherwise we would be back at town meeting again, if it passes on. I think we're looking at it early August, August 5.
So long as you vote a contingent appropriation at town meeting, the town meeting vote and the ballot vote both have to take place by September 15th.
Yeah, right,
So the date tentatively, the date the board has established is August 5th
yeah.
for the election?
That's what Ellen can back off and make work best. That gives us a month of the balanced budget, which means significant adjustments.
Yeah, it does.
Right, we have to vote the balanced budget first,
Yeah,
Mhm.
because July 1, we need operating
Oh, yeah.
budget.
and which means we won't have enough money to float. We may end up having to lay off somebody that doesn't end up having to be laid off.
Mm-hmm. True.
Because 5 weeks, probably we can make it work, but you never know.
Yep.
So I just know that we have to have an attorney who's there, because there's going to be very specific questions asked about, well, can you do this, you can't do that, can you? I mean, it's done all the time, so my guess is it's not as complex as I'm trying to make it in my head. Because I have this idea that, okay, they vote a balanced budget, and then they say, we don't care what the selectmen said, we're not going to give the town the opportunity to vote a different budget. And we go, well, wait a minute, I don't think you can do that. Once we say we're going to do this, I think we do it, and then the town gets the vote. So I don't think they can, I don't know, but
So, Maureen, you're right, regardless of the vote at town meeting on the override, it still goes to the ballot.
Yeah, it still goes to the ballot, because the selectmen can say it's going to the ballot.
It still goes to the ballot, that's your decision.
Yeah, and then, if necessary,
You have to
we
have
have to go back to town meeting.
Right.
But if they vote this contingent budget, which is contingent on the ballot, then the ballot goes.
You've got it down right.
Yeah,
Right,
okay,
right.
that's what I thought.
What's that election gonna cost us?
10,000.
10,000. It's in the.
It's
in the
there.
budget.
So what happens if it's voted down at town meeting and voted down at the ballot? You move $10,000 into our budget,
Yeah,
In the override.
it's part of the override.
I
Get
don't,
double vote downs, and we're basically stuck with cutting
a
services.
$10,000 bill.
Yep, so then we'll have to deal with that.
democracy's expensive.
If you had a nice juicy reserve fund, you could transfer money, but you don't have a juicy reserve fund.
That's part of the challenge too. Like a town our size really should have a reserve fund of like 150K,
Yeah,
right? And so when you have these budget challenges, you have nothing to fall back on.
This the old landfill days, we brought in over $1 million a year when I was on the board of health of that landfill.
You know, and we chewed up the last of those funds in '23.
It was very solvent for many, many years with $1 million coming in every year from that landfill. That was your tax offset, that was the big business, that was the money.
Well, it's business in the community.
I don't have anything else.
That's it?
No, I don't.
I would ask any and all of you though to go carefully through the budget, and if you see anything that just seems, oh, maybe this is something that we missed, whatever, let's bring it to our attention so that on the 17th, we're really solid.
Yep. 17th, public hearing here.
And we'll be voting the warrant, okay, on the 16th. We will have a meeting in the morning, and we will vote the warrant, and then we will clarify it again in our evening meeting. But Ellen needed more time for her constables to get out and, post, so we're doing it in the morning, and then we're having a meeting at night, and we'll do it again.
Were we able to get, I didn't see it on there, and just the articles to rescind those funds that we discussed, the generator and
Oh.
the bridge?
Oh,
We can get that on. We don't have
that's a
enough.
good catch.
Yeah. I'm usually a bit more on point than that, but, I just popped in.
Well, it's just,
See, you did your job quicker than we asked. We're gonna do.
if anyone has any,
We
The
talked about
warrant will be real on
the
16th.
Yeah.
if anyone knows the details on those articles,
Yeah, I can send you the
it
accounts.
may be helpful to me,
Yeah.
rather than having to hunt through town reports, which is what I'd end up doing.
It's not a ton of money, but it's something.
I have it all.
Yeah, so there'd be an additional article.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I think there's an article for the generator, and then there's
yeah.
3 articles with some loose funds for bridge work, which we know is not, they're 20 years old, and it equates like roughly $14,000. And
50 for the generator.
50 for the generator, 50,000, that's been on the books since '21.
Yeah.
So I know years ago, and we never really got there, I didn't push the issue. But there was discussion at one point, maybe we'll look at it next year, a special, to put a bylaw in place, like where if an article is 5 years or older, it goes up to be rescinded, where those funds aren't spent. A lot of towns do that article cleanup every 4 to 5 years.
Yep.
I'll get you that, I have all those details.
Yeah, I'm here, so.
Okay. Anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn? Second, all in favor?
Aye. We done.
Make a motion